Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting this evening, Monday, June 13th. This meeting is being recorded for LCTV, being aired live, and being live streamed at longmeadow.org. This meeting was also posted as required by the open meeting law. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can in a moment.
It's up to you.
The Longmeadow School Committee maintains educational policies that foster continuous improvement by challenging and supporting all children in a safe and caring learning environment, enabling them to reach their highest potential and to become productive citizens. Through effective communication and positive relationships, the Longmeadow School Committee will make informed decisions in the best interest of the students, the schools, and the Longmeadow community. Go ahead.
This evening, in light of the events of Saturday night, I think it would be appropriate for this committee to take a moment of silence to honor the victims of the Orlando shooting.
Okay. Are there any school committee comments this evening?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Why am I not surprised, Mike?
I know, but for old time's sake. So, I don't know if the committee or the community is aware of the fact that tonight is Kim and Janet's last meeting. And I just wanted to begin by thanking both of you for your service to our community. For the last 3 years, I think Kim and Janet have served our committee with a lot of pride and a lot of, they've treated the district respectfully. They've done the best they could every single day, and they've worked as hard as they could in the best interests of our students. And I think that you both learned pretty early on that the work we do on this committee is not easy, and it's not without controversy, and yes, people, they do get upset. But it also takes great courage to put your name on a ballot, and it takes even greater courage to make difficult decisions, no matter how unpopular they may be. But regardless of, the nastiness in our politics, people like Kim and Janet, I think, embody really what's noble about rolling up your sleeves and getting involved. And they've shown us that public service, for better or worse, is important. Kim and Janet have never backed down from a fight when they believe in what they're fighting for, and they both stand on principle. So right or wrong, popular or unpopular, they stand for what they believe in. I believe, and I think most of us believe, that our community's better for your service and your dedication. And I'm thankful to both of you for everything you've done for our board and for our students. So thank you, and we will miss you both.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add to that. It's been a pleasure working with both of you the last 3 years. I think when people sign up for school committee, they have no idea the amount of work it takes. And you two are worker bees to the maximum. If we took the total amount of time that the two of you have dedicated over the past 3 years, it's amazing. You two have given far more than could ever be expected. Janet, you took on the role of chair, which I don't think people understand behind the scenes how often we call you to come over to sign something. The superintendent reports to the chair any crisis that's going on or keeps you updated. Kim, you served on budget. You've brought forward all kinds of issues. You promoted special programs. We really are very, very grateful. And when people tell you that during your time that you really kept your eyes on the child, the two of you did. It was about all children and what was best for the district, and that's hard to do because you both have your own children, but you were able to do that at all times. So we're very grateful for your service. Tonight we have for each of you a plaque, and Janet, let me start with you. Janet Robinson, in recognition of your service to Longmeadow Public Schools, and of course the pen, so you won't forget a stamp day.
Thank you for having that on the budget. Appreciate that, Tom.
And Kim, in recognition for your service to Longmeadow Public Schools, in a memorial pen as well. So thank you
so
very,
much.
very much. And thank you
Thank
for your
you.
service.
Would you like to say something?
Well, I didn't really prepare anything.
Do you think we weren't going to say something nice?
No, I don't know. I wasn't ready.
She's not believing it's really over yet. It won't hit till tomorrow
I
morning.
still had budget questions last week for Tom, so. I don't know, it has been a fun 3 years. I have enjoyed working with everyone on this committee. It's been, I've learned a lot as to what goes into make our district what it is, and it's a lot more than I ever thought it was, and I appreciate all the hard work that all the admin team and Marie, your team, and the principals put in behind the scenes, because you really get a sense sitting on this board as to what you guys actually, it's not what you see as a parent sitting out there. So I've appreciated you welcoming into this community and being a part of the school committee. It's been nice. Thank you. And good luck with your retirement as well.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, well, I did prepare something.
I saw yours. I was a little jealous.
You know, I'm not necessarily way ahead of time, but, you know, Marie's speech was done way sooner than this one was, so. But I was thinking, you know, many people ask, why did you even volunteer to be on the school committee? I've been asked that by lots of people over the last 3 years, and as tonight's my last night, I gave that some serious consideration. And it all started when the high school was being rebuilt and the district office staff was relocated to Wolf Swamp, and I would run into Marie on many occasions, and she kept asking me, why was I making copies? Why am I, you know, laminating things? Why don't I run for school committee? I laughed and I explained to her that, you know, I was good where I was behind the scenes, and that they needed me there. And then after my youngest two finished at Wolf Swamp, then the question came up of what was I going to do now, and my boys told me, yeah, you don't need to come volunteer at Glenbrook and be with us. Go find something else to do. So that's how I got here, between Marie and my youngest two and a year of uncontested elections. I came to the school committee. You know, people may think that volunteers do what they do for altruistic reasons, or, you know, some people may volunteer for career experiences, or to develop skills, or to build self-esteem and make themselves feel better, or to feel needed, or for the social aspect of it. And as parents, I know that most all of our plates are not only full, but overflowing. Our schedules are so tight, they're cutting off circulation, and our to-do lists are endless. And the last thing that any one of us wants to do is commit to another project or another group or another organization. But by volunteering and investing in our schools, all of us help to provide the ongoing social, academic, and emotional support that's required for our children. And it relies on the group that we call the village that it takes to raise the child. And the same is true for creating and maintaining a positive school environment for the entire district. And our teachers and our administrators are responsible for providing enriching academics and professional support, but they can't do it by themselves. And building a tight-knit community of volunteers who dedicate their time and resources to helping build that solid foundation of support leaves a lasting impression on everyone involved. And so my desire to give back to the community is simple. By volunteering, I realized that I could make a difference. So I would ask everyone to find a way to get involved and volunteer, whether it be as a classroom parent, a chaperone for a field trip, sending in a dish for the teacher appreciation luncheon, serving on your school's PTO or PTA or school council, or by taking the crazy leap that I did 3 years ago to running for the school committee. And I would just like to thank all of the parents, the teachers, the staff, the administrators, and the community members for their support over the last 3 years. It certainly has had its ups and downs, but your support has been appreciated more than you will ever know. And I wish the school committee the best in moving forward. And thank you for volunteering your time and energy for helping all of our students. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you. So thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Any other school committee comments? All right. I certainly will. And we do have correspondence, so I'll backtrack to that.
So there is correspondence for this meeting. An emailed letter from Miss Laura Gephardt dated May 19th regarding the Wolf Swamp Road School principal search. An emailed letter from Mr. Mark Gold and Miss Angelides requesting committee input on the town's operations under the current town charter and governance structure. And a memorandum from Mr. Donald Jarvis of the Lower Pioneer Valley Career and Technical Education Center regarding their Student of the Month for May 2016. Longmeadow Student of the Month being recognized is Kevin Gonzalez, Integrated Occupational Prep.
Thank you. And I am going to rearrange the agenda just a bit so that Mr. Dunkerley might get home sometime tonight. So, Mr. Dunkerley, you're here this evening to present changes to the high school handbook for our review.
So thank you very much, everybody, for allowing me to come before this group and present the proposed changes to the Longmeadow High School Student Handbook. I know that you all have the information in your packets, but for the folks that are viewing this at home, if you would indulge me, I'd just like to take a couple of minutes and review the process by which a student handbook gets changed, and then to quickly review those particular proposals that we have, and then field any questions that the committee has. So the process for us started actually in January, where we solicited faculty, staff, and students to participate on the Student Handbook Review Committee. We had 9 such people volunteer. They covered all 4 classes at Longmeadow High School. They covered staff, administration, and teaching faculty. We began our process right after February break and met weekly for 8 weeks and developed proposals based on input not only from the members of the committee, but from solicited input from all faculty, all staff, all students. And so the result of that was a little more than a dozen changes in one way, shape, form, or another that we'd like to bring before this group. Once that was completed, then it's our responsibility to take that in front of school council to be vetted out, which we did. What we came in with is what we went out with, and then we brought that to the faculty, and I'm pleased to say that our faculty voted unanimously in favor of all the changes. So if I may, I'd just like to go over some of these changes with you briefly. In your packet, you would receive 2 documents. One of those documents indicated 2 changes that are proposed for the handbook that were brought to us by central administration. One has to do with homework expectations, and it's directly from the document that was developed by administrators and teachers and approved by school committee. And it basically speaks to the homework expectations at the high school only. The second has to do with just students remaining in the building. This has been an existing policy. We just haven't actually placed it within the student handbook. And it states that students must leave the building, Longmeadow High School building, by 3 p.m. unless they're in a supervised activity with a faculty or staff member or other adult chaperone. As I said, those 2 items were brought to us by central administration. The following items were what was developed by the Student Handbook Committee. So we took a look at several items, and again, these are all brought forward by students, by teachers, by administrators, as items that we think needed to be improved within the handbook. So the first one had to do with dismissals. And we just needed to clean up the language that we had regarding dismissals. The language that was in the handbook wasn't very clear and didn't really accurately reflect exactly what it was that we were doing. And what we did is we added a small section to that where it just says that administration reserves the right to prohibit students from being dismissed for ice blocks due to reasons associated with but not limited to student behavior and or academic performance. The reason for that is, and it's actually a practice that we've engaged in, students being dismissed for an ice block has always been an option. Okay, it's a privilege, it's not a right, and Michael says he took advantage of it. You and many of your colleagues, Michael, at the time, and peers. But when we have a student whose behavior is such that it doesn't warrant their getting that privilege, or their academic performance indicates that they should get some extra help in school, we like to reserve the right, and this is in working with the parents, to keep that child in school, to do everything that we can to ensure their success. So that's where that comes from. The second item had to do with mid-year and final exams, and that was just a cleaning up of the language. The language was not clear, especially in terms of mid-year exams and the amount of time that was necessary for students to remain, which is an hour and a half. So nothing more than housekeeping there, but the language did change, and we wanted to make sure that we brought that to the committee in its entirety. Chemical health, and this has to do with the MIAA regulations regarding chemical health, specifically substance use and abuse, including alcohol, drugs, and other illicit substances. So what we did is we added a small section there that appears both with the MIAA section at the end of the book and under athletics. And what it does is it gives us a little bit more flexibility in working with students who are multiple offenders of the policy. To this year, we've not seen hardly any cases of students violating this policy more than once, occasionally twice. We're now seeing it a little bit more. The MIAA policy is really written to only deal with it twice. So as students, unfortunately, are making poor decisions and occasionally violating the policy 3 or more times, the teeth that we wanted to put into it wasn't punitive. The teeth we put into it was to allow us to require students to engage in counseling, okay, and to make that a requirement rather than an option before they could return to the field of play. Again, this is we feel it's in the best interest of the students to provide, a safety net for that student that isn't getting the message the first or second time. Sports are a very powerful motivator for kids, and if they're kept off the athletic field and they need to go and get counseling, they need to get that kind of support for whatever decisions they're making, we hope and believe that it will be, it'll prove to be effective deterrents and effective when a student does make those decisions to get them back on the right track and get them back to a healthy state. Okay, the next area that we looked at was academic dishonesty. And up to this point, we've had what I'm going to refer to as a 3-tiered system. If you were academically dishonest with homework, the consequence was rather small. Okay, you took a 0 on the assignment, and you got a warning, and basically said you better not do that again. Conversation with your guidance counselor, conversation with your assistant principal. If you were academically dishonest on a quiz or something of that nature, then the consequence ramped up. And if you were academically dishonest on a major test, a major paper, then the consequences were more significant. It was rather interesting that it was our students who brought this to us and said, basically, you know what, cheating is cheating. And the homework they got. Kids copy homework, it's not right, they shouldn't do it. But that's not a big deal in terms of consequences. But they said when you're taking an assessment, when you're taking a quiz or something similar, whether you're cheating on that or you're cheating on a major test, you're cheating. And they thought very, very strongly that the consequence for the two should be the same. So the proposal is this, that we eliminate what we do in terms of the quiz and make that same consequence, make that the same consequence rather as that we have with a major paper or a test. Okay, and just so that everybody's clear on what happens there, if somebody is guilty of plagiarism, if somebody's guilty of cheating on a major test, they take a 0 on that. They have to actually write a paper on academic dishonesty that's reviewed by one of the assistant principals. And yes, we actually do read them, correct them, and review them with the student. Parents are, of course, notified, and they have to serve 4 detentions. The beauty of this approach is that it does not go on their record, so that if there's a first-time act of academic dishonesty, even if it's significant, it's an opportunity for the student to learn from that mistake and not have it follow them. Should there be a second act, however, of academic dishonesty at that level, let's say they plagiarize a second paper, it would result in an external suspension, in which case that would follow them into college. So just wanted to give you a full overview of that. Oh, please. Questions during or fine?
So I completely agree with that. I'm wondering why we wouldn't also do that with homework, though, because it's kind of the same. Let's say you have homework and it's this report or something that's due and you plagiarize the report. Would we, I mean, what's the logic for not doing it with homework as well?
The logic for not doing it with homework is that it's really not an assessment per se. And that's the dividing line that people drew, the students drew, and the faculty draws as well. We don't accept it. We don't think it's right. And certainly if you are academically dishonest multiple times, regardless of whether it's homework or a test or whatever, then the consequences ramp up significantly.
So it's just that first level where you
It's the first level.
differentiate.
Right, and the difference really is in terms of whether you are writing a paper or whether you're not. You're taking a 0 on the assignment regardless.
Okay.
So,
Plus, I think with some of like the homework, for instance, if it's a math homework, you're supposed to have the same answer as everyone else, you know? So, or if it's a short answer, I mean, it's going to be somewhere along the same
We've
lines.
caught you being dishonest. What do we
Right.
do
Right.
about it?
exactly.
I think it's
It's probably harder to catch on homework, though.
Pardon me?
Probably harder to catch on homework.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You know,
Sorry,
John?
John.
To what extent is academic dishonesty a disqualifier for membership in the Honor Society? Have we ever had students removed from the National Honor Society? We have a chapter at the high school.
we do. Very strong chapter. So,
I know that's- well, go ahead.
to answer that question, John, in my tenure, I have not had a student who's a member of the NHS guilty of either of cheating of any kind. We haven't actually had to cross that road. I can tell you this, okay, that's for current members. I can tell you that there have been a couple of people who have applied for National Honor Society because those names do pass by administration. And if they have been guilty of let's say, a major act of academic dishonesty, their application gets deferred for at least a year.
But there's no penalty of removal.
There's always the opportunity to have that penalty if it exists. We have not had to cross that road.
It's a pretty severe penalty, and
It would be an
I'm sure a lot
extremely-
of parents would be very upset about it.
Right. It would be an extremely severe
Certainly drive
penalty.
home the point
Yeah.
that we're serious about academic dishonesty.
Right. I think should that occur, we'd have to take a look at it on an individual basis and, you know, make the best decision that we could based on what had happened at that point.
okay.
All set?
Thanks.
Okay. The next section that we dealt with was the appeals portion. Last year, as this committee recalls, we made some pretty sweeping changes based on input from our attorneys on the student discipline policy. When that was all said and done and we were putting it together at the end of last spring, it had been approved by our faculty, it had come before this committee and been approved. We noticed that the appeals process as recommended by the attorneys was incomplete. They had only taken a look at the appeals process for the disciplinary side of it, and even though we had discussed it, their paperwork, their submission never included a change to the appeals process with regard to attendance and with regard to academics. So currently in the handbook, it states that those types of things can be brought all the way to the school committee. And the recommendation of the attorneys was that those things should stop, basically, those appeals should stop at the principal. That's what happens now currently with discipline. So we've just made that change based on what, quite frankly, should have been brought before this group last year. And then the last thing that we looked at that was brought forward was some general change to the language. And this is not a policy change, but it's a change in approach, if you will. And we were asked to look at the possibility of making changes within our handbook and going to gender-neutral language, removing the hises and the hers, the himself and the herselfs, and going to something that was more gender-neutral. We had a large discussion about this. Probably every meeting we had, all 8 meetings that we had, I think we discussed it every single time. And what the committee came to was the recommendation of this. We'd like to make those changes. We're not ready to take words like freshman and fireman and move them out because we think that that begs a larger discussion on a bigger scale. But the himselfs and herselfs and those types of things can easily be replaced by words like the student or the students without losing their meaning. We want to limit what we do and change in this book, however, to only the language over which we have control. As you know, there are several policies that are quoted verbatim in this, in the handbook, and we don't feel that our committee has the right to make or recommend any changes to language that doesn't originate with us. So in all, there are 40 different instances within the book itself, about half of which we have control over, and so it's our intent with everybody's permission to go ahead and make those changes. And then we would ask respectfully that the school committee, as they look at policy, consider, based on the input from our faculty and students, consider the use of gender-neutral language as we go forward. So that's it, everyone. So I'd be happy to entertain any other questions.
Did you have any discussion about the cut policy that came to us at one point during the year? About whether
We
there's
did.
other ways to do it?
We did. We had a lot of discussion about that, not only at our group, but also at our faculty meeting. And what came across very loud and clear, particularly from our faculty, is that they felt that this policy was extremely effective. We have one of the best attendance rates around and one of the lowest cut rates around. And as somebody who looks at that literally every single day, I can tell you that it's effective. So at the end of the day, when we looked at it with our faculty, they voted overwhelmingly, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was more than 90%. It approached 100%. In fact, I do remember, there was one dissenter,
Okay.
and everybody else voted in favor of it.
And there really wasn't any other options that were a close second?
No, there weren't.
Yeah.
Our faculty like it because we think it supports learning, it supports keeping kids in the classroom. Certainly, our track record indicates that, we're doing that our kids are there. So, we would very much like to see that maintained.
Okay.
Please.
Did you talk about having like a one-time, over the course of your 4 years, a one-time reprieve for something, like you did with the academic dishonesty? Did you talk about that at all, if the faculty would consider that?
Well, we didn't talk about that in specifics. I will say this to you, that the faculty has the right as individual teachers. They are responsible for the grades in their classroom. So if a student were to cut their class, the faculty member does have the right to count that or discount that if they think that that's appropriate. It's a position that they would have to be able to defend individually. Occasionally, some do that, but based on the circumstances. But we think that overall, the policy, again, is effective with our students.
Good.
Any other questions?
Thank you for putting all this work into this.
Yeah.
Every year I know
have lots and lots of help.
I also appreciate, and you and Tom have always been really good about this, that you just bring us what's actually changed instead of the whole handbook. It's much easier to follow.
You didn't want to read 60-some-odd pages?
I've done it before.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah. But thank you. I know it's a lot of work, and thank you to the the school council and the students and the faculty for all their efforts as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They're a great group of individuals. It's always my pleasure to chair this committee and work with them every year. They're so thoughtful and insightful. So it makes my job easy.
All right, any other questions for Paul? All right, well, thank you. Can I have a motion,
Yep.
please?
So moved.
Make a motion. Or is he?
Do you want to read? I'm
I
sorry.
move that the school committee approve the changes to the 2016-2017 student handbook for Long Meadow High School as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And just on a personal note, Janet and Kim, I wish you both the best. Thank you for all that you've done for the Long Meadow Public Schools and support of the high school in particular.
Thank
And Marie,
you.
I wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And the good news is you still have Janet for like another 2 years.
3.
So 3 years.
3,
Perfect.
at least 3. No, just kidding.
Maybe 4.
Stop. All right, so going backwards, Marie, would you like to do your report?
Sure. Center School hosted the Academy Awards. Students in the 5th grade wrote historical scripts, acted them out, and videotaped them for a live audience. Parents, staff, and I admired the creativity of our students as they showed that they can do it all: write, design costumes, act, produce, videotape, edit, do credits, and more. Hats off to the teachers for guiding students in the successful interdisciplinary activity. The Long Meadow High School Awards Ceremony was also held last week. Approximately 160 awards were given to students who are scholars, athletes, musicians, artists, and community service providers. This ceremony recognizes the excellent work of our juniors and seniors, and it's a pleasure to be present to cheer on such super students. For the first time, the middle schools had Explore Day. Glenbrook and Williams sponsored this day for their students. Thanks to guidance counselors Bridget Dulay and Mary Morrissey, students were able to listen to people from different careers speak to future possibilities. Speakers included a pediatrician, an engineer, a photographer, a videographer, a handcuff company, a relaxation expert, and more. This day gave students the opportunity to link their interest to potential future jobs. Speakers were excellent, and students enjoyed attending various workshops. Graduation was held at Springfield Symphony Hall yesterday. Thank you to the school committee members who came. It was a wonderful ceremony. The graduates were honored and the celebration was superb. There were student performances that included singers and a piano solo. We wish the class of 2016 all the best in their future. They have left a positive mark on our school system. And then finally, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the 120-plus people who came to celebrate my retirement at Twin Hills Country Club on Friday night. Students performed My Coney Island Baby. It was a high school quartet. It was magical and enjoyed by all. I really appreciated spending time with staff, parents, family, and friends as I get ready to retire. Special thanks to the organizers.
Diane, really. And Sue.
And Sue.
And Carla. And
And
Tom.
Carla.
Diane, Sue,
Tom.
Carla, Tom, they said they were throwing your name in there if it went sour, so we're gonna throw your name in there since it went well.
I have to say, I was at that Academy Awards at Center School. That was really cool to
Fantastic.
watch. Those kids were so proud of what they did, and they were, you could tell how much work they did. I thought it was just a fabulous combination of incorporating their social studies with their writing and technology. It was really great.
It's always fun to see that because there are such great units, and particularly some interdisciplinary units that really is top-notch teaching. And it's nice when it's open to the public so people can drop in and say.
And I know that we do have a number of our high school athletics
Yeah.
have won, and Michael, maybe you can help me, because I know I'm going to miss some of them.
You start
Men's
off with
lacrosse won Western Mass
and they won their quarterfinals.
quarterfinals.
They have
Women's
semifinals today,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
5 and 7.
women's lacrosse
Same.
won Western Mass
And their semifinals.
and their semifinals.
Or quarterfinal.
The men's and women tennis team, they lost today,
But
but
they
they
did
got
win Western Mass.
they got to Western Mass.
Yeah.
And then Abby, is it Abby Makwa?
Yeah, she's shot put.
Is shot put state finalist.
She won in New England.
New England finalist. I'm sorry, Abby. See, I knew I'd need help from everybody of all of the athletic accomplishments. And I know that track and field went on to divisions as well, Western
Yeah.
Mass.
I mean, it's all individuals, but
Right.
Obviously we had Abby Makwa do extraordinarily well in New
Yes.
England's. I don't know about any others, but
So if people want to watch what's going on next, there's that tomorrow, 5 and 7. It's in West Springfield for lacrosse. And then I don't know when the rest of them are playing.
Saturday would be the boys
States.
lacrosse states, and are the girls Saturday too?
I don't know, I only know Tuesday.
Okay.
Well, tomorrow's,
I go
you
one
got to
day
get through
at a time.
tomorrow first.
Yeah. No, I just I don't want to get ahead of my skis here, but I think I feel good.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate all of our talented athletes as well, so. Finance sub. I know Liz
Speaking
is,
of doing well, speaking of doing well in
Doing well?
athletics,
are we doing well financially?
well,
Let's just say our
well in
athletics are better
athletics,
than
we
our
tend to go
finances.
over budget.
Yes.
So yes, Finance Sub did have 2 meetings since our last school committee meeting on May 25th and June 8th. So there are a number of items on tonight's agenda. The first is an updated set of student activity guidelines. So the high school and middle schools have pretty active student activities accounts. They are accounts that are specifically set up for clubs and activities that raise funds that are raised by students and used for students. Earlier in the fall, the committee approved a list of activities at each of the 3 secondary schools. So what you have in front of you tonight are a list of guidelines. The last time the committee approved guidelines for student activities was back in 2010. Since then, although there hasn't been a large amount of change in the actual activity guidelines themselves, the state, both the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and the Business Managers Professional Organization have come out with new guidelines. And so we've incorporated those into the document that you have in front of you today. The previous document was a list of about 22 or 24 different items. Finance Sub did review these guidelines back on their May 25th meeting, and primarily what you're seeing are it's a change in the format and the way it's presented. I think it has more detail than the previous version that was approved. We are reducing the threshold for dual signatures that are required on the amount of a check. It currently calls for it to be $10,000, and we're reducing that down to $2,500. It is reducing the amount of time a class account can be open in the student activity account. Under our current guidelines, it allows for a graduating class to keep their account for up to 5 years, and under the new guidelines, it is 90 days. And the rationale behind that is that they are no longer students of the Long Meadow Public Schools, and holding money in trust for them is not within the guidelines of the student activity account. It also has increased the frequency of reconciliation. It's a little, it says periodically, and the reason it's kind of open is that the elementary schools do have activity accounts, but they don't use them as frequently as the secondary schools do. So I didn't want to put the same burden on them to do a monthly reconciliation when they have such little activity compared to the middle and high schools. So the expectation will be that middle and high schools will do a monthly reconciliation of their account, both their checkbook and their balance to the general ledger, where the elementary schools who do use it, not all three use student activity, some rely on their PTOs, that would have to be done on a quarterly basis. It also it cleaned up some language regarding the audits. They are required to be done formally by an outside audit firm once every 3 years. And in the intervening years, the language now requires that it to be done by someone independent of the actual student activity. So it eliminates the business office, the treasurer's office, the town accountant, since they all play a role in processing payments or reimbursements from the fund. So I think some of it's just cleaning up the procedures, the general operation of it. We are currently auditing the secondary school student activity accounts this week. The auditors are in doing their once every 3-year audit. So so I don't know if you have any specific questions that I can answer. If they're approved, they will become in effect immediately.
So
Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. I think that the 90-day policy for student activity or for class accounts is a good thing. And the reason I think it's a good thing is, obviously, as you know, if they're in there for 5 years, the graduating classes do hold their 5-year reunions. And we've had many circumstances where that money, which is in a school account, has been used to pay for open bars. It's been used to pay for, activities related to these 5-year reunions. And that obviously is not what we want our money going to. And so
It's not been used for open bars. I do want to clarify that. We paid for
I beg to
rental,
differ.
and might reimburse people who paid for open bars, but we
Right.
didn't pay a bar bill directly.
you should have been at my 5-year reunion. But so yeah, 10's coming up. 10's coming up soon. But I think that's a good policy change, and I think it kind of protects us from whatever liability we may have if we're putting the money down. Additionally, I think that it's also good to take the auditing of those accounts out of our control, just given the circumstances that we've had previously, and also the veracity with which the audit committee has been coming at us in the past couple of years. So, alleviating that responsibility from you and handing it off to a professional firm, I think is an important move.
Any other questions regarding this? All right, seeing none, I would call for a motion, please.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee adopt the student activity account guidelines as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
So next on the agenda, we have budget transfers for the current fiscal year. We have two sets of transfers. I'll start with the grants and special revenues. There are 4 funds that are listed on that budget transfer. It is titled FY16 Grant Special Revenues Revision Number 4, dated June 8th, 2016. The Title I grant, there are approximately 6 or 7 lines in which we are moving funds around and also recognizing an additional $1,284 in an appropriation that we received from the state for Title I. Same would be the case with Title IIA, which is appropriating $462, again, increase from the state and the grant award amount for this current year. In FY16 Private Kindergarten, which is our kindergarten tuition fund, I'm anticipating there being some money left over in this fund at the end of the year. Right now, it's somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000. Since we have not paid all of the invoices at this point, what this transfer in front of you will do is appropriate $12,000 in FY16 and allow us to transfer some general fund kindergarten expenses, salaries, off of the general fund and onto the kindergarten fund. Since we will not be charging a tuition, I didn't think it was appropriate to leave funds in this account after this fiscal year. So we probably will have to come back at some point later on to also appropriate the balance, that whatever residual amount will be left in the in the kindergarten fund. So those 3 lines are being increased by $4,000 to use up the fund balance in the kindergarten fund. The same would be the case with the pupil transportation. This line existed because we used to charge for the service of transporting students after school to the JCC and to Greenwood. We have not done that this year, and so there is a residual balance of $4,800 that will also be used to incur some of our transportation costs for FY16 and allow us to move some of that expense off of the general fund, freeing up some general fund balance in FY16's budget.
So I know there is, John, do you want to make the motion?
Okay.
Kim?
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee approve the budget revisions as outlined in the document titled Fiscal Year 16 Grants and Special Revenues Revision Number 4, dated June 8, 2016.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Questions and discussion?
I have a question about the kindergarten one. Sure. Do we still have an outstanding kindergarten tuition balance that could add to this, so that the amount could go up?
It could, which is why I said I'm not exactly sure where that number is going to end, both on the expenditure and revenue side. We have a few families that we have a balance that we are still pursuing. So depending upon if we receive that before June 30th, then we could appropriate it.
Because it was about a little over $5,000 total between some families.
Correct. But I can't guarantee that we're going to receive all that before June 30th.
Any other questions?
Nope, sorry.
Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The next set of transfers are general fund transfers. Document titled FY16 General Fund Budget Transfer Number 4, dated June 8, 2016. So there's about 3 or 4 pages worth of transfers in the general fund. This is an attempt to try to address any shortfalls or deficits within a line or anticipated deficits as we receive additional expenses through June 30th, trying to align the appropriated amounts to anticipated expenditures to minimize the amount of transfers that would have to be done to close out the fiscal year. And again, with the number of lines we have within our budget, there's over 500 lines we have, and staffing changes and expenses that are incurred don't always line up as to how we anticipate them when we're developing our budgets. So this is to use the line item transfer authority school committee has to appropriate the funds where we incurred our expenses.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Sub that the school committee approve the budget revisions as outlined in the document titled.
Transfers.
Oh, sorry. Budget transfers as outlined in the document titled FY16 General Fund Budget Transfers. Number 4?
This would be
Is that-
revisions, wouldn't it?
I thought we were,
Yeah, this is for FY17, isn't it?
No, this is FY16
16.
budget transfers.
This?
No.
Oh,
It
we're
is,
still on.
this document?
Oh, I thought we already voted on that.
No.
No.
We voted on the grant and special
Okay, good.
revision.
Okay, I'm lost. It's fine.
Okay, so
so my FY16 General Fund Budget Transfer number 4,
Yep.
dated June 8th, 2016.
Second.
motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
The next item is a request to authorize the superintendent to approve end-of-year budget transfers in accordance with School Committee Policy DBJA, which is titled Budget Transfers End of Fiscal Year. And it outlines the parameters in which transfers are required, which is basically if the appropriation is exceeded for a particular line by at least 10% and is more than $1,000, or if there is a deficit of $10,000 or greater. This is a practice that we do every year. There are transfers that are needed to address shortfalls as we process our last payroll warrants and accounts payable warrants that are usually processed sometime in late July or August. And the town likes to get them in and close out the fiscal year in a timely manner. So historically, the school committee has authorized them, the superintendent reviews it, and then approves them to be processed.
So, John, motion?
Okay, I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee, and as specified in the School Committee Policy DBJA, that the school committee grant authority to the superintendent to approve the necessary budget transfers between munis budgetary lines in order to close fiscal year 2016 accounts.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And the last item Finance Sub reviewed was a revised FY17 budget. So if you recall back in February, you approved a budget. There's been much dialogue. Town meeting has finally approved an amount for our general fund. And what you have in front of you tonight are the financial documents, which is the thick packet that was included in your package. But I also try to provide a one-page summary outlining the changes, because unfortunately the financials don't compare the budget you approved on February 11th to the documents you have in front of you today. It only compares it to the FY16 budget. So there are approximately 6 or 7 different changes. With the hiring of a new director of people services, we've increased the salary to reflect the contractual amount that was agreed to. At the same time, we also have hired a replacement for the Williams assistant principal. And so there were salary savings that we were able to reduce that line by to offset the increase to the director of people salaries. So there was an increase and a decrease of the same exact amount. The nurses' salary increases throughout all 6 schools because there was a settlement for the nurses that was not completed at the time that the budget was approved. We had money set aside to pay for those settlements in the FY17 budget. So we took the money that was in the other admin salary line and dispersed it across the nurses' salary lines. in accordance with the salary schedule that is in their contract for FY17. The middle school team, back in the budget that was approved, had them split at a 0.5 FTE in each middle school. This document moves them into a 1.0 at Williams, so there's no change except in terms of the line items seeing either a decrease or increase in both dollar amount and FTE accordingly. We changed the budget codes for both our grants and special revenues in this document, so the codes would line up with the reports that you'll receive next year when we do our budget updates. We also, it reflects the increase of $48,000 in parking fee funds that was part of the compromise budget that we have with the select board to be able to use funds that the school committee has from fees in the revolving account. So now it'll be reflected, and those expenses would have to be charged to our budget since they are funds that belong to the school committee. And the final one is a reduction in the general fund of $50,000. Back a few meetings ago, Sue presented some changes to the pupil services budget. The exact amounts are listed here based on the changes that were proposed, and the total amount comes out to $50,000.40, which now the general fund amount lines up to the amount that was approved at town meeting in the warrant for the budget. So I can answer any questions. Finance sub did go through it back at our meeting.
So why don't we have a motion so we can open for discussion?
Okay. I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee approve the fiscal year 2017 budget as revised and dated June 7, 2016.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so I'll open it up for questions. Anyone? Russ?
So the last point you just made is basically it means we're not taking the 50 grand out of school choice.
Correct. Correct. The budget that was approved, or was compromised, was going to rely on 50,000 in school choice. With the reduction now in the 50,000 here to the general fund, we don't have to rely on using that 50,000 in school choice that was discussed earlier on.
Okay, thanks.
So we can possibly take that 50,000 and use it towards geometry books?
It would be available for use at some point.
What about, and I know, Sue, when you had made your presentation, you know, we talk about the fluidity and the fluctuation of services required for special education or pupil services based on, you know, children moving in, children moving out. So saying that we're saving 50,000 from school choice, if there's a need for more services in pupil services next year, those funds would need then to come from school choice? Tom or Sue?
Typically, they haven't had to come from school choice, at least in the past several years. We've been able to look at lines that we've been able to use and.
Right, but I know
Yes.
that this year with how tightly we've budgeted, I didn't know if that's, I'm sure you would still look
I don't feel like it's
first.
any more tight than it's been going forward in the past few years. I think we did a really good job looking at every single thing that we knew coming up the pike. And yeah, we're hearing about a couple more move-ins potentially, but we've also pulled some kids back from out of district. So,
Okay.
you know, at this point, I feel like it's not any more of a challenge than it has been in the past several years. I don't know about you, Tom.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think there's always either been a shortfall or overages in lines throughout our entire budget.
Right,
And so we try to budget as best we can based on the information we have at the time.
right.
And I do expect there to be changes within the pupil services budget next year. To tell you what those changes will be, I have no
Right.
idea. We have heard of things that will happen based on new students moving in and potential services that we may need to provide. So
Right.
we most certainly will have to deal with them. But at the same time, we also know that other students that we plan for in a certain situation aren't going to happen. So
Okay.
we deal with them as they come up, and we've been fortunate to not have to go to school choice to help pay for those services.
Okay, good.
Here's my only fear with all of this reduction in pupil services is that every year we have turned back money. I can't see us having turned back money this year. And so I don't see a whole lot of extra this year. I mean, we can't even afford a science curriculum, and we're on the fence with some geometry books. So to reduce in an area that's so fluid, I mean, sitting in those finance sub meetings, listening to, everything that goes on that I don't want to say, you don't want to.
Yeah.
I know that you know your budget, and I trust it, but I just get nervous whenever we reduce
I
from
hear
that
you.
area.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all I'll say.
Some staffing stuff, I think
And I
that's
guess you
more
put it more
secure than
eloquently than I
the
did,
student
but-
thing, the tuition thing, so.
Just because I just think last year we had $50,000 returned back, I think, or somewhere around there.
40 something and change, yeah.
The year before that, we had
Much higher number.
a much higher number. I mean, we were in
Right.
six digits. So, and then this year, we can't afford a $170,000 science curriculum and possibly a $40,000 geometry textbooks, which we typically would have used that extra turnback money for. So now we don't have that turnback money. So now I don't know where those extras will come from next year, but it's just something to watch.
Yep.
I don't want to
Thanks.
not approve this because.
Russ?
Yeah, and I totally understand that. I think part of the problem, though, is something like curriculum, to say, when we're using extra money for something like that, we either have to prioritize it and somehow get it into the budget as an actual number that we fund, or this is going to keep happening where we have textbooks that don't get replaced for years and years. I mean, it's.
Right.
And a curriculum.
Text and curriculum shouldn't be extra money if you have it. We should work on that.
For the next budget, we'll have to try to do that.
Yeah.
Any other
Which goes along with
questions?
your comment. I mean, I think you're making a good point, but.
All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Okay.
Good job on that.
Were there any other subcommittee reports? Any committees that have met that have,
I have a legislative update.
okay, go ahead.
So the Senate passed its budget about 2 weeks ago. In there are a lot of goodies for education, primarily higher education, a lot of money going to UMass. But right now, the budget is in conference, which essentially means that the House and the Senate are trying to figure out how everybody can get a little bit of what everybody wants. And so we are expecting that the conference committee will drop their report, which is essentially their combined bill, sometime towards the end of the month or the beginning of July. After that point, the governor has 10 days to offer his vetoes, and he has the ability to line item veto. Following which the Senate and the House will then override said vetoes, unless they agree with him, which I doubt they will, because they both voted on it already. Also, just quite a bit of activity as the session begins to wind up for the year. This week, of course, a lot of stuff around veterans, but there's a lot of bills out there that are still in need of being moved upon. One of the ones that's probably the most critical and most important to the town of Long Meadow is a bill called the Municipal Modernization Act, which Governor Baker did file. It's currently coming out of the House Ways and Means and should be making its way through the legislature shortly. And that basically provides cities and towns with a lot of ability to manage their money a little bit better, establish their own revolving accounts without really DOR being a part of that conversation. There's about 800 things that it does. It's a pretty comprehensive bill, and it's got a lot of benefit. I think, more so for the select board than the school committee, but certainly those financial management tools do have impact for us. And that's about it. The House is probably not taking up charter school legislation, so it will most likely die in the Senate, and we will have a ballot question, which could go any way. Let's hope it goes the right way, the way this committee voted, but who knows? And that's all I got.
Okay, any other?
Should I couple in there? Mike?
Sure, why don't we'll just move that up quickly so you can explain that.
Because you said the budget is in conference right now?
Yes.
And I know that last meeting we voted to write a letter about Chapter 70 funding.
Yes.
And so I was talking with Tracy Novick over at MASC, and she recommended that we get our name on this list. Even though the budget is in conference, she said that it could go longer, that it could go into the fall, and it would be good to have our names on this list. That's her opinion. I don't know if you follow her, but she's,
I'm glad she, okay. Well, let me just put it this way. The legislature stops working on August 1st, so
okay.
it'll be finished.
It'll be finished. Okay, well, she said she thought we should get our name on this list. It's a community supporting resolution calling for full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations. And I apologize for not emailing it to you all sooner, but I did email it to you right before this meeting. But basically, it says the message is getting out. We would like to thank the following for their support of our resolution calling for full funding of the Foundation Budget Review Commission's recommendations. Many other boards and communities, including boards of selectmen, finance committees, have it on their agendas for consideration. To date, we have been notified by the following towns, and they've got a bunch of towns listed here, similar to us, in the same situation as school committees from Hamden, Wilbraham, Harvard, Hingham, Holliston, Lincoln, Sudbury, all towns that are in similar situations than we are, that need a little bit more funding, and I was just going to see if we could vote to put our names on that list.
Can I ask,
Sure.
I support the thrust of this. Shouldn't we be asking the select board to sign
Well,
on to this too?
So they've got a list for select board, they've got a list for school committee, and they've got a list for finance committee. So my thought was, they've got a much longer list from school boards, but I thought if we get our name on the list for school board, then we can send it to the select board and we can ask them if they would like to add their names to the list, and we could also send it to our finance committee as well.
Okay, thank you.
So does anybody want to, is everybody okay with me emailing them and letting them know that we'd like to add our name to the list?
I think we should probably
motion.
vote.
What?
Should I make should I make a motion? Or make John make a motion?
Well, why don't you?
I don't know how to, let's see.
Well, just I move.
I move that the school committee vote to put our name on the community supporting resolution calling for full funding of Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations.
I second that.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining?
I'm abstaining. I have a conflict of interest
Yeah.
and cannot vote on this, but I support it.
So when I emailed Dorothy Presser of the Suburb Coalition, who should I CC? Because I will do it tonight, but I won't be around tomorrow.
Diane?
To follow up. Should I CC Diane? That way she has a name to, if she has any questions. Okay.
All right. Any other subcommittees? All right, seeing none. Sue, it's your big time of, your co-jobs and speaking for the principals and.
Oh, there's a nice.
Can I do theirs first, and then I'll do mine second?
Sure,
Okay.
however you want to do it.
Thank you.
There's a nice dash on this annotated agenda with all of your job titles.
The,
Nice.
you have the floor for a little while, so whatever order you would like to
Okay.
go in, you rock it, girl.
All right. Anybody have any requests? Yes. Well, this one isn't actually. So we agreed to report on the final assessment for Ames Web and compare it with our assessments throughout the year. And our principals have emailed me some of their Ames Web data, and it was a big jumble, so I tried to put it together in a way that was cohesive and coherent, and I'll send it all to you after, but I just wanted you to be aware that it's not so professionally done. So I started to talk a little bit about what Ames Web is. Ames Web is a universal screen tool. Students in K through 12 can use it. We use it K through 8 for the most part. It's a brief, reliable measure of reading and math performance. It supports our RTI endeavors. It supports tiered instruction. Tier 1 being general ed support, Tier 2 being strategic intervention, and Tier 3 being intensive targeted instruction. AIMSweb is a great tool for progress monitoring. You can test in between probes, so meaning you can test a student every 2 weeks for progress to see if they're moving along, and you can move them out of RTI or they're falling behind and meet some more of intensive services. AIMSweb is normed at national, using national averages. And guess what? New one's coming out very soon. We watched a webinar on it. Nick and I watched a webinar on it last week, and it looks pretty good. It's a tool that's a little more in-depth, a little more technology-based, and hopefully a little easier for us to administer because although this is a quick screening tool, the teachers still need to upload all of the data into the AIMSweb scoring. So it's not so automated as we would like it to be. So we're looking forward to something like that. So the first assessment we're going to look at is nonsense word fluency, and it's for little kindergartners, and we test them starting in the middle of the year. And it tests the ability to link written code to the most common sounds, like C, K, cats, easy kindergarten sounds. And I put the schools in reverse order this time, so I'm sure I'll mess it up, but this is Wolf Swamp. And the bottom line is the target that we would expect students to be at, nationally normed students, and the green line is us. And, you know, both lines should go up as the year goes on. What we're looking for an increase in growth is a spread at the 2 final points. We don't want the lines to be parallel. We want them to be, what is that called? That's a math word. Yeah. Obtuse? More. So this is center school, kindergarten reading, winter and spring. And this is Blueberry Hill, grade K, winter and spring. And then the RCBM, you might see it come home or hear people talk about it, is the reading curriculum-based measurement that calculates the number of words read correctly per minute, kind of like a typing test only for reading. And that's what the BAS system is similar to as well. And research over many, many years has shown that the number of words per minute a student can read correctly is a good, reliable measure for general reading achievement. So if kids are reading fluently and correctly, their comprehension is more than likely adequate, if not above. So we took a look at grade 1 and grade 2. And we don't start testing until winter of grade 1 here. Fairly parallel lines. Still way above target. And center school and Blueberry. Yeah. Grades 3 and 4. In the center. Blueberry. I'm running through quickly, but I will give this to you. And then the maze reading assesses silent reading comprehension, which is a skill that kids from 3rd grade on are really taking advantage of, or they really need to have a good handle on that. And we start in maze grade 5. This is the center. And the windows for these assessments just closed. So we uploaded the data and made the report, but the principals and I have not had a chance to really look at it in depth to see, you know, there are little blips up and little blips down, not many, but a few, to see what they may be doing right to make that go well, or what may have happened and why something might have taken a dive. Math concepts and applications is a prompt that assesses general math problem-solving skills. We start math assessments in 2nd grade. And you can see some nice kind of gap growing between the target and us. So we're green once again. And center school grade 2, I think that is a issue with the upload, the fall score.
So you think it was actually above?
Yeah, yeah. We've had a few glitchy things with AIMSweb. Blueberry Hill grade 2, the again, they only reported winter and spring, I think, because the fall was a glitch, the fall score. Fourth and fifth, math is starting to get quite a bit harder at this point for students. Center, Blueberry Hill.
So what you do is if you see a school that's maybe staying level,
And some of the other schools that are going up, do you?
We might see what the other schools are doing, what intervention they're doing. So this is a tool that you really want to look at for interventions or for enrichment. So, you kind of take a look at, well, what are you doing? What are you using? And the folks have gotten together by grade level to be able to do some of that work, so. Here's reading. I talked to Taylor about this today, and he'll be looking into that kind of oddity there, although it's a similar pattern to the target. It's a little more so. So the targets get harder as the year goes on, obviously. Grade 7. This is comprehension again.
is the target a state target or a?
Yeah, it's a national. And let me talk about that for 2 seconds. So we use, the Ames Web scores are one of the measures that we use to move students into our RTI or into enrichment, just one of 3. We usually look at 3 data points to do that. Because we start out above the targets, the national targets, we actually lower our bar for intervening, I guess is what I should say. So in effect, we're kind of raising our targets, I guess is what I should say.
So our target is above the average.
Our target for getting students into RTI is above, the national norm.
Do you have like an average for Longmeadow?
You can kind of change the norms on that. We didn't for this one, but I can show you that if you want to see that sometime. In grade 8. It could be sometimes 2 or 3 kids are absent, don't get to take the test. Somebody who scored really well moved out. It's really, when the class sizes are smaller, a couple of kids either way make a difference. Grade 8 reading. Back to math for Glenbrook. This is concepts and applications, problem-solving skills there. This is a newer textbook, just FYI. Math computation is just what math computation is. Good old, here's your paper and pencil, get going. That's grade 6. And then Williams, grade 6. Nice growth there. Number grade 7. 7. 7 math computation, well above target. Again, well above target.
Now, Sue, that takes both groups of the differentiated math into account?
It's an average of this,
Average
every
of
student.
everybody.
Yeah, we didn't
Okay.
pull any group out. So, grade 8, math concepts and applications, again, problem-solving skills. Williams. Sorry about the link. Yes. Math computation, again. Look at that nice big gap between the target and where Longmeadow is. And that is the end of their data. So they all, the majority of them had other previous engagements and couldn't make it tonight, but we'll be glad to take email questions. They didn't tell me that, but I'm telling you that for them.
Actually, 2 questions. So have we looked at, how long have we been using Ames Web?
I want to say this is our 3rd year with Ames Web.
Okay, so
Yeah.
is it possible, is this something you can compare year after year, or is it not?
Mm-mm,
Okay.
it's
so-
not,
So we
No.
can't tell over time how we're doing.
not really.
And when you look at math, it looks like the middle schools we're pretty far above. At the elementary level, it looks like we're not that far above the average. Have you looked at that at all?
Well, I'm hoping with our new math text that will
At the
change.
lower
It'll
level.
be exciting to see that next year. I know that our MCAS scores went up in math in elementary this past year, just with pilots, so hoping,
Okay.
yeah, that will be helpful. Definitely.
Is this more useful really for individual students?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I hate to say it, but MCAS growth scores are a little easier for us to look at. The challenge is they come out late. So maybe next year that will be better with the new MCAS 2.0. Perhaps we'll get some results back sooner than later, which will be helpful.
Is it going to be on line test or on paper test?
I think the first year at least will be an option for both, but I haven't read anything about 2.0 lately, to be honest with you.
I read a number of articles lately about Common Core in general. Like the Washington Post did an article, and there's
You should stop reading those, Russ.
there's some question. I kind of wonder how effective this is really going to be, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
MCAS is pretty effective, actually, for keeping Massachusetts ahead of the game.
I mean,
But-
the fact is that we're soaring above many, many states in the nation, and
Well, in other countries too.
yeah.
So the question is Common Core going to lower our standards in Massachusetts or higher them?
Well, I think that the positive thing is that many of the standards are based on the Mass frameworks, so we're fairly lined up for the most part, and we've brought some rigor down into the math area. But truth be told, it'll take probably 5 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And we'll need new curriculum after that, Tom.
We're on the 20-year plan, actually.
History doesn't change. We don't use credit. Any other questions? Can I switch? Okay, so I also need to report tonight on pupil services and the curriculum and learning department. And so we've had a busy few months here. We've done a lot of work, and just a lot of kudos to the amazing staff in both departments that have been just so helpful in stepping up to the plate while we've been understaffed. So that's been really great. So these are just some quick, fun facts. I think I started with curriculum and learning. This is our illustrious PE teacher at Wolf Swamp. He had a group of kindergarten kids that were running circles around him and having a great time in there. Curriculum work this year, we have had lots going on. We had an elementary health committee, and we know what happened with the recommendation, but they worked hard to get to that point, and hopefully we can get that back. The elementary science, I don't know how many times I've said it, I'll say it again. That committee was so cohesive and dedicated, and I'm really hoping we can do something to get some science into the schools next year. Elementary social studies is continuing to review the scope and sequence. We haven't had a release of social studies standards in quite a while, so we're waiting for that. We've been waiting. Elementary math had its full year of math expressions. With and without its challenges, we are continuing to seek professional development in that area. Middle school social studies is reviewing scope and sequence. Middle school science is aligning to the new state standards. The national science standards came out a few months ago, and they're very close to the new state standards. Middle school math is aligning with the high school. I should say that across the board, all subjects are kind of doing the high school, middle school, elementary alignment. And we continue to build class libraries because our literacy program calls for lots of rich literature at reading levels in all classrooms. And kids have access to digital books, textbooks at all levels. And the high school does an amazing job at reviewing their courses by department.
So what kind of content do the elementary social studies courses have? Is it like topical, like geography?
They hit some of that, yeah. They do ancient Egypt. I mean, they do a ton.
They, you pick different civilizations?
Yeah. That's
Egypt,
sixth grade, right?
ancient China?
Yeah. Pardon?
Ancient Egypt, China?
That's sixth grade, I'm sorry, yeah.
Do they skip around, or is there some flow?
They skip around. They skip because, again, John, the text for social studies in elementary schools is kind of what people can find or what they use or what they feel is relevant. So they do current issues and things like that. So they're using a very, very old social studies text.
Does the social studies feed into the middle school social studies? Does the elementary social studies feed into?
It's the same situation at elementary and middle school. So they have a scope and sequence that they are using, but they may be using things that they're pulling from offline or that they've had in their repertoire of things that they share. So they work together as a grade level to put their units together, but it's not necessarily using any one particular text all the way through.
But doesn't the middle school try to coordinate with what the high school is going to pick up?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
When does that start? 7th grade, 8th grade?
When middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th. Which
Yes,
are-
but
which are-
when does the curriculum that's taught begin to connect to what's going to be taught at the high school?
What'd you say?
It doesn't?
It doesn't.
You know what I'm saying?
But freshman year's world history.
Yeah, freshman, and they've had, you know,
They do
bits and
tons of
snippets of
world
world
history.
history all the way through elementary
Yeah.
school and middle school. So they don't
But
get,
when do they
they
study
don't,
when do they study the American Revolution, for example?
5th grade.
5th?
at least 5th, if not more often than that. It comes,
Actually, I think
it's,
my 3rd
it's,
grader
it
covered it a
circles
little
back.
bit, too.
Yeah. They study it in, you know, kindergarten.
But we have.
Some of it.
We have a curriculum map. The problem is we don't have textbooks to align
Yes,
with the map. Right?
exactly.
And that's the
So
problem.
Exactly.
Do we have something that says, is this the map? By the time you're done in kindergarten, no matter which school you're at, you should have covered this.
Yes.
We just don't have them teaching it this, with, using the same textbook?
Yeah, we have a program called Atlas that has all of our curriculum maps in it. So they can, so you can come in, go on Atlas and figure out, you know, September of kindergarten year, what should I be doing?
So by the time they all graduate from elementary school, they've all covered A, B, C, and D, according to what we've told them they need to cover.
Yes. And the old frameworks, which are old.
However they can by going on like Pinterest and places. and
Isn't that
trying
interesting?
to-
Yeah, but there are great things on there.
Yeah.
We have Discovery Ed streaming for the middle schools, so they can use some of the movies off of Discovery Ed, some of the video streaming and things like that, which they have taken advantage of. And we have some electronic programs with, I can't remember the names of them, at the elementary schools that the kids have access to, and I've seen them being used.
So what's coming out of, what are you looking to get out of the elementary social studies reviewing scope and sequence?
Some more cohesiveness between the schools, I guess, and, you know, some sharing of materials, what are you using? I mean, I don't see us getting a new text next year in this area. I don't feel like it's going to happen in middle school either. They piloted a few things at middle school, just kind of dipping their toes in the water and didn't love anything and are waiting for new standards to come out, and so basically alignment.
Alignment.
Yep.
I'm kind of surprised at that. I've seen social studies texts aimed at 5th and 6th graders.
They do have text, John. I'm not saying they don't have text. It's very old.
That's strange, too. The publishers are always revising stuff. But, I don't know, has anyone really looked into this?
We're not always revising it, but publishers are.
The problem is we're not budgeting to actually buy the books.
We don't budget to update them.
Hmm.
Good thing history doesn't change.
I think the
That's
teachers
not
are
true.
finding creative ways to pull it. I've seen it in my kids, what they've been doing. They're incorporating it into the books that they're supposed to be reading
Yep.
for their reading and comprehension.
They do a
part
lot
what
of
they're
cross
doing.
curriculum stuff with social studies, absolutely.
I mean, at center school, they incorporated it with the technology and the writing. With that, if you went to that Academy Awards, it was a history project.
Yeah, the Wax Museum at Wolf Swamp School is all about history and, you know, famous people, and
Yep.
so they do a nice job integrating into all the subject areas.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. They work hard to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah. All right. Here's a sampling of the PD opportunities that folks have had this year. Social emotional conferences, Lynn Lyons and Charlie Applestein. Folks have been doing the National Reading Conference, the National PE Conference in Boston, the National Math Convention. There was CPR and first aid training for folks. There was opiate crisis training that was very interesting and frightening at the same time. We had movement and TRX training for PE teachers. Folks who went to the National Speech and Language Conference, with technology training all the time. We have training in ELA and math. And in FY17, we're looking at legal issues workshop for the district, which will again frighten everybody. We're going to look at anxiety more overall. It is, an underlying theme in kids as early as preschool. And I think we need to be enlightened a little more about really how much that affects student achievement and student success at the schools. And then we have elementary science, math, and ELA to continue with for next year. What's going on right now is folks are completing the teacher evaluation, and our office and Carla has to aggregate all that information with OSA and technology and feed it all back to the Department of Ed, and that is a massive project. There was a committee to institute student feedback. That happened a while back. I wrote this a while ago because I was supposed to report, I think, a month ago. We're planning for summer PD. We're planning for FY17 professionals, FY17 opening day, believe it or not. We're looking at doing some summer work, hopefully on a standards-based report card at elementary. Those of you who have elementary kids are probably saying, thank goodness for that. You'll hear more about that coming up. We're working on what Title I will look like for next year, what METCO will look like for next year. 3 of our students graduated, were METCO students who graduated, and I unfortunately wasn't able to go to the METCO dinner on the 19th of May, but that is always an awesome dinner, and the kids are just so grateful. I think Marie got there this year. Thank you. I think there was something with my mom. But were you just in awe? The kids are just
Absolutely amazing.
you know, they go through their lives in K through 12 here, and you don't really hear much from them. But when you go to that banquet and you hear about how thankful they are, and their parents are, and their grandparents are, you say, okay, we made a difference, you know, and it really means a lot to them. We have 4 new little ones starting this year in kindergarten, next year, I should say. I'm already calling it this year. We are going through the final rounds of RTI meetings so that we have kids grouped and ready to go for the start of next year. I did write this a while ago. So we also attended, for the first time I got to go, to the Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Awards. And that's one of our high school winners there. And we are completing the BAS screenings. So Ames Web is done. And I just want to remind us all that I know we are so academically minded here in Longmeadow, but students need more than that, and we have some amazingly well-rounded students, and they are so talented in so many ways. So I always try to pick a seat at graduation on the stage behind somebody, but it's always near the music. So I was like flashing my phone, but I know you didn't get to go to graduation. The student on the top left composed his own piece. And it was amazing. Amazing.
Was
Yeah.
in awe.
Yep. That's our own Sam Schwartz right there in the middle. And
great.
yep, amazing. It's so cool when they're sitting right next to you, like, wow, they're really good. And I don't know who the girl is there, but she played a great guitar, and
That's Emma Kratoff.
okay, and they just did a great song with that.
Beautiful voice.
Yep.
That was a beautiful.
It was all good. 2 of the kids did a rap.
Yeah.
So, and it got the whole crowd going, and it was really nice.
Sue was so close that Sam asked her to tune his cello.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's why it sounded so good.
Yeah.
And
All right. Next year, there's potential changes coming for teacher evaluation. There's some legislature on DDMs you didn't talk about. That's okay. We're going to let that go right by. Elementary is fighting for professional development time. We're trying to work on ways to get some more math professional development in there. Not on the text necessarily, but just kind of on good math practices. I already talked about legal issues training and social emotional training with an emphasis on anxiety. Scope and sequence reviews. Software exploration for tracking student achievement. We had a software program that we used that is done now. They closed shop. So we're looking at something that might be easier for tracking student achievement across the board. And we can put several data points on it, and we'll have more information to share. We're in the middle of planning for professional growth courses taught by staff members. We're planning our admin retreat for the summertime with Marty. Over at Bay Path. Not much of a retreat, really. It's only about a mile away, but. And then I'm going to move on to pupil services. And this is quick, too. So when I did the report, this was about a month ago, we had 586 active students and in grades pre-K through post-high school. Whoops, and then I didn't want to say for the number, but it's over 50-ish students placed in out-of-district programs at that time. the high 50s, I'd say. Programmatic happenings, you know all about these programs. You've been talked about them, but we have programs at elementary, middle, and high school, and are looking to expand those as our students move from one grade to the next. We have some amazing programs, and the kids have done amazing things. Current happening, we graduated 3 of our life skills students this year. We're holding transition meetings. We're hiring and repositioning special education staff. We had some decent turnover in special education this year, but we've also had some excellent applicants, so that's wonderful. We're lucky enough to have folks who really want to come to Longmeadow, so that's helpful for us. Our ongoing budget review. I've been to a lot of out-of-site, off-site schools in the past few months, checking those schools out and seeing how kids are doing there. Just keeping an eye on students who are moving in and moving out. And we transitioned, we went live with TyNet last week. All the data is saved on the old program, and we are working on a new program now for new IEPs. So that's been exciting. There's been, I would call it minor glitches that the company works through with us very well. They've been great so far. I've been reviewing a contracting for FY17 services, holding off on what we can hold off on until Jean arrives, and PD planning for next year for special education. We're looking at supplies and materials for next year. We don't have money, Michael just said. And then meeting with units E and F on reasonable assurances for jobs for next year. So that's a big deal, placing all the paras every year takes a lot of our time, special education. But I wanted to showcase preschool this year because I don't think we get to talk about preschool too much, and they're really cute. The preschool's over at Wolf Swamp, and there are some real gems in there this year. If you get a chance to stop in there, they range in size from about that big to about that big, and they can come in as early as 2 years and 9 months and stay through their 5th grade till they're ready to start 5th year until they're ready to start kindergarten. So our preschool serves children 2.9 to 5 years old, so they may be turning 5 as they're getting out of pre-K. Here's a couple kids. Our preschool serves over 70 students. 53 attend the pre-K at Wolf Swamp, and we have 17 itinerant. And on occasion, we service students out at their preschools too in the district. It's an integrated preschool, so we have 50-50 split. 50% typical kids, or usually it's a little higher than that, and a few less percentage of students who have identified special needs. And that's our physical therapy assistant. She's amazing. That's Diane Taslett. If anybody's ever had to deal with her, she's great. So our integrated preschool provides early identification of students with special needs. We have tons of early intervention services, as you can see there. That's just a few of them. We provide lots of continuity between early intervention programs and public school. Our coordinator, Catherine Beavis, has great relationships with all of the EI service providers in the area. She attends a 90-day pre-planning meeting and a 180-day pre-planning meeting, so she knows which kids are coming in from early intervention well in advance. It provides kids with nice social skills opportunities, and it provides, probably as important, is the opportunity for typical kids to engage and learn about students with special needs in the preschool. And then to the very finish, you know that we've had a class of students who have more severe needs, and we call them, right now they're in Cafe 232, but they actually started at Wolf Swamp Elementary School, this particular class. And we've grown the class through middle school, through high school. And so we graduated 3 of those kids who were actually in preschool as 3 and 4-year-olds. And it was pretty touching, so.
That was awesome.
Yeah. They all went to prom. They all had gorgeous dates, as you'll be able to see. And I talked to all of their moms today and congratulated all of their moms, and they are beyond ecstatic that they've gotten that far. Never thought they would. We're very thankful of our input and our dedication to these kids. And I don't know if they're going to miss us, but we're really going to miss them. Another one of our friends. Pretty good, huh?
That was very special.
Yeah.
Very, very special.
Yeah. And this guy, I could easily get most popular, and I'm hoping this will work because this was just the best way to end our graduation. No sound.
Well, someone videoed it for you?
Yeah. How can I get the sound? Michael, do you know?
Kevin?
You might have to check the remote.
Where's Joseph on
Probably working.
Boston? No, he was at the graduation.
No, there's a button on the side, I think.
Oh, that one?
That might be.
Whoop, I did it. Okay, gonna start over again.
What?
Sorry to put you through it.
They just called his name.
Peter Allen Hankey.
That's our special ed supervisor standing up in the white. Yep.
That audio doesn't do justice because the whole place
So,
was
yeah,
like
you-
screaming.
That was a picture of about a third maybe of the auditorium or and everybody was standing
It was
for him
really
and clapping for him. Yeah, and for all the kids. But it was a great way to end it. And to say that this student is shy is an understatement. But his mom said he was flying after. So, yeah, and all three parents were just so grateful. So,
Sue,
makes our work all worth it.
I just want to kind of comment before Dave yells at me. Yes. I just want to quickly comment on the life skills program because the program's what, 3 years old, 4 years old at this point, whenever the high school opened, roughly.
Well, it's been a continuum kind of
Yeah.
coming up, right?
But, you know, like, we kind of started, or at least with the high school classroom in this building, really with the idea of bringing back students into the district, reintegrating them, and really, you know, building a community where we're supporting all learners. And that right there was such a special moment, and it was such a very cool thing to see that it kind of just lets you know how successful that program's been.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of confidence in what we're doing, and it makes, you know, I think it makes it all worthwhile. And, you know, I'm particularly proud of that program, and I know that you worked so hard to build it, so, you know, thank you for that. Or at least in the high school.
That's your high school staff, yeah,
Yeah.
who did
Well,
that too.
They had a good leader.
Yeah.
So.
But what it shows here is that I find a difference in high schools in the area
Sure.
is that our students are so welcoming and so tolerant.
And that was, it was interesting because my dad is here visiting. Obviously, Ben's graduated. And his comment about that was he thought it was so neat that it was the student body themselves who started the standing ovation. It wasn't the parents, it wasn't the faculty, it was his classmates.
Yeah.
And he thought that made it so much more special.
Yeah. I'm glad that got captured.
Okay, enough said, I'm done.
So.
Thank you.
All right, so any other questions for Sue about any parts of her presentation?
Oh, I did.
Oh, please.
Oh, sorry, Kim,
I'm
I
sorry.
Do you want me to back up?
No, you had something listed, I forgot what slide it was. You said something about math PD, and you're trying to do more to provide more.
Oh, well, we have limited number of PD days, particularly at the start of the school year. We used to have 1.5 full days, and we moved one of the days. You know, we were trying to get more full weeks in the calendar, and by that, we kind of moved our PD days around. So that took a little toll on our PD availability, and we also moved our early release days into full half-days. So although the time is about the same, there are less days, kind of.
So it's not a matter of us providing resources, it's the days?
Now we're digging for time
Now
to
you're
find
digging,
appropriate
okay.
PD, because they're competing kind of factors out there. So we're going to look at the Monday after school time in elementary, to think about doing a math PLC for folks who are interested in that. And we can't really use the Wednesday time, that's their time, a teacher's time, but we could offer some things that they may want to join. We'll see how that goes for math. So we'll dedicate some of the PD, probably a full day, to math, good math teaching at elementary, and then follow it up with a PLC, after school stuff. So good PD is kind of ongoing, and a lot of it is teacher-led, and the research is right there. I mean, that's the most meaningful kind of PD. So it's great to have somebody come in and do a discussion on anxiety or whatever, but, and everyone's like, oh, that's great, that's awesome, and we often have so much good, enthusiasm about it, and it goes by the wayside. So it's ongoing and consistent PD that's important for us. So we're working on it.
I just didn't know if there was something we needed to provide as a, financially, I don't know if there's something that the committee is.
Yeah, but it's
something
Tom
else.
said no.
now we're looking at an allocation of time, really.
Okay.
For all the things that need to happen or that we feel are important.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And again, thank you for doing a dual role for these past 4 months.
Well, I had lots of help, and I just, thanks for letting me have that chance to get back there for a little while, but I am looking forward to July 1. I have a pile for, our new PS director, and I'm looking forward to handing it over.
All right. So next on our agenda, we've received a letter from Liz Valario, who is our school committee attorney. And the letter that she sent was regarding an increase to her fees for legal services starting July 1st, of increasing by $15 per hour. So I know that there were emails requesting that we have some discussion about that, so I will open the floor for that. Russ?
I just want to state that I filed a disclosure of appearance of a conflict of interest with the clerk of the town. So our firm represents school systems, and I called the State Ethics Commission and spoke with Attorney Wilson. So he said I should fill out this form. Basically, what he said is that I need to disclose that I work for a firm that specializes in representing school systems. Also, that my firm wouldn't apply for any type of position here, so whatever discussion we have, that wouldn't involve my firm. And then any discussion I have would only be about whether to increase the fee or whether to go out to bid or whatever we decide to do, but I wouldn't be involved in the actual selecting of whatever firm is ultimately chosen, whether it's this firm or some other firm.
You'd abstain from that.
I'd abstain from the actual selection, but that I can discuss the fee itself and whether we should, decide to go, bid the services or what we're going to do. I can get involved in all of that. So.
John?
Yeah, I recall during the course of the year that we had several cases that we wound up paying extra after being given advice from this particular firm to take a certain course of action. And I don't want to get into specifics, but in short, we were not given good advice, or so it seemed. I don't know if anyone's omniscient. You can't always predict what's going to happen in a particular legal case, but I'm just wondering if their error rate is within the range of acceptability. I've been told that this fee increase is within the realm of acceptability, given current prices. I don't know if that's germane, but I would like to know about what this committee thinks of the quality of work that was given by this law firm.
Michael?
If I'll respond to that a little bit. So, I've worked with them I've worked with them just a little longer than I have, and I think that we can all agree that in terms of their labor negotiation work that they've done for us, they've done a really good job. And, Liz specifically has been very shrewd, very talented, very sharp in getting us a resolution that is, about as good as it can be given, given the other side and their demands and what they need. And, obviously, we've always come to a good resolution, and I feel like everybody's walked away from the table about as happy as you can be after a negotiation. The attorney that you're speaking about was an associate at the firm, and she frequently gave us bad advice, and that's just the truth. And it's cost us money. It's required us to bring employees back into the district. There's been bad advice, but she no longer works for the firm. And what we've heard, or what I've heard, and Marie, maybe you can speak to this a little bit as well, is that she wasn't really getting permission from her partners to offer the sort of advice that she was given. She wasn't clearing some of the resolutions to these cases with the senior staff and the senior level partners. So it was oftentimes a little misguided, honestly, and that we've suffered the price from that. But in terms of the work that we did around the open meeting law complaint earlier this year, the contract negotiations that we've had, the grievances that we've dealt with, personally, in my opinion, personnel issues, I think that they've done a better job than not. But obviously, I think we can all agree that those cases which you were referring to are regrettable, honestly.
Yeah, there were 2 cases that involved student safety, and the harsher approach was taken to dismiss, and whether or not it could have been handled in a different way, we debated, but it happened twice. Mm-hmm. And that attorney is no longer with the firm. But the cases since that time have been handled successfully.
Russ?
So, I get that once.
Yeah.
The problem is it happened more than once. Right. And even today, we heard the handbook issue that, I don't know which attorney that was. I had a really limited experience so far because I've only been on the committee 1 year. So it's difficult for me to know. I will say our fees over the years, looking at what was presented, that's pretty high for this size system. I mean, some years you're over $100,000, $150,000 almost. And even this year in those budget transfers, we had about another 50 that we didn't budget. Now that might happen with any firm. It could be that we're just busy from a legal perspective.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to judge that really. I guess the flip side is, are we spending? I don't know if that's what we would get charged by some other firm. And I'm not saying Western Mass, Eastern Mass, Central Mass. I think if you did anything, it would be, or if we did anything, it would be to just bid out and see what we get for responses. It wouldn't be, I don't think we'd be in a position where we just say to Deutsch Williams, we don't want you anymore. I think it's a question of, do we want to bid, at least in my mind.
So when you're talking about the legal fees, are you including SPED in there as well, because we use a different firm?
I was just looking at what Mr. Mazza sent, which was not SPED.
Okay.
I know SPED
just
would be
making
on
sure
top
we're
of
breaking
that,
it out. Okay.
But for labor and general counsel, those are, SPED is always going to be expensive. If you have
Right.
one case of the SEA, that could be 50 or 100 grand by itself. But labor and general counsel is, that looked pretty high. Now, it might be our fault, I don't know. But.
Is that the 40,000 here?
Well, if you look back in the chart that, kind of the simplified chart that Tom sent us, there was one year where it was over 100. I didn't bring it with me, but, so I don't know. It's, I guess the question is, could we get legal services for less? I mean, I don't know if that's,
right.
I will say though that I understand that one time where we have a mistake one time. It's the second time or the third time that, it cost us a lot of money.
It did.
And there was no offer of, well, we made a big mistake, somebody in our firm did something they shouldn't have, and we'll compensate you in some way for it. It was just, well. And
I also don't know if we asked them to do that. That's the other piece of it is, when it came to the superintendent search firm, we took umbrage with the quality of service they provided, and we went back to them. I don't think we've ever had a discussion on the committee level about, asking them to forfeit some fee or, compensate us in some way or not charge us for like a mileage reimbursement or something.
Mileage isn't charged for.
They bill us for their time, don't they?
I have, and Liz has not billed us for things.
Yeah.
We do
she
not charge
has.
for travel time to and from
Yeah.
Long Meadow.
Okay.
There
I
were
just
times
wanted
that
that
I
corrected.
did ask because of dissatisfaction,
Yeah.
and there was a reduction
Okay.
in fee.
Russ, can I ask a kind of an empirical question, I think, without getting you in conflict? Is $2.25 per hour, what's is it going right now in this area?
That's not a bad rate. I mean, it's probably higher than some firms, but it's not dramatically higher. I mean, it's more about the way you're billing. So some firms will bill you to send your bill. And,
Right.
and so it depends on how the firm's billing. So everybody might be around 200, but it's how do you bill that 200? Do you bill when somebody talks to you real quickly and it's about scheduling something? If your secretary's calling, are you billing for that? Some firms do, some firms don't. So that's really the difference I've seen, is that sometimes you come in, you do the same job, but your rates are the same, but the bill's half, because you're not billing. Some firms are hyper vigilant with billing and some aren't. So it's.
That's a good point.
And Tom, was the FY15, did that include the negotiation for all the contracts?
No, that 105,000 number?
Yes.
No, that did not.
Okay.
So it's actually in tonight's document too, in this budget document, if you have it with you. It should be on page 1 of the 24-page document. Yeah, I did send it out, but if you didn't have that with you, it's in the budget packet that, so the line above that would be where we would record our negotiating.
Yep.
Well, I was just going to say that I do agree with you, Russell, that, we've been using Dutch Williams for a while now, and it may not be a bad idea to just kind of go out and shop it, and if we stick with them, we stick with them. That being said, I personally think that the majority of the services they provided to us have been satisfactory, and, there have been occasions that we've been less than satisfied, but I'm not opposed to that. I think that it's probably just a good business decision on our part to see what's out there and see if we can get a better rate. And honestly, one of the challenges I think with Deutsch Williams is just their geographic location, and to be able to get them turning out here, we're really scheduling around them. Having a local firm may be better in terms of what we need done, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that picture looks like since your firm can't bid.
Well, the other thing I think is, who do you get from the firm?
Right.
Do you get a partner, or in this case, do you get the associate?
Right.
And there's a huge difference at big firms like that.
Right.
Big difference
A huge
between
difference,
Liz
yeah.
and the
Liz and
associates.
Jan, yeah.
So, I'm not saying, I don't know locally that if there's going to be an option that's going to work for us, but one point of this would be the cost, but the second point, I think, is who's the attorney
Right.
that gets assigned to us? Is it always going to be a partner? And if it is a partner, are they going to charge us more? Because Liz, I don't know if she's billing out at $225, but I would imagine not, typically. So if she's doing $225 for us, it's got to be a discounted rate or something.
She bills us the same as what the company bills us.
Okay, because I know our
Yeah.
sped firm doesn't do
And
that.
she brings us cookies. I'm just going to say that.
But,
Very.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's a blended rate, but every bill, the rate is the same.
Yeah.
okay. I'm pretty sure the sped firm doesn't do that, though.
I believe Murphy Tomei has, does give us a consistent rate also. I think theirs is a little higher.
So it's a different
240.
firm for the people services?
Yeah.
It is. We
Legal?
use a different firm for special ed, and I think I said in my email, we have used the other firm for some of our regular ed this year for some specific situations. But primarily that legal counsel expense line has pretty much been Deutsch Williams.
So the settlements line that doubled, is that
special ed settlement line.
I'm sorry, the
Yes.
pupil
The-
services.
That is separate. Those would be based on agreements we have with individual parents regarding services.
And the legal counsel that was used for those was not Liz's firm.
George Williams, correct. It was Murph.
It was the other
Murphy
one.
Hess,
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just think, so that's something to think about then, because that to me is of more concern than, I sat with Liz during teacher contract negotiations last year, and I thought, I mean, I don't have anything to compare to, but I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah.
Besides,
She's
the
excellent.
cookies did not sway me at all.
They don't sway me either, but they are nice. They're nice. Nice to
But they
have
were very
when you're sitting there caucusing.
I mean, she was very firm. She was very confident. She negotiated in a way that I never could. Obviously, I was thankful that she was there, and I thought she was very good during the negotiations. Now,
And Michael,
you know,
one thing I
that's
do want to say is.
the dealing I've had.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
With the larger firm, they get lawyers here quickly. We don't
Yeah.
wait. We,
Right.
and we've been very, very pleased with everyone they've sent this year. We've had some tough cases this year that were resolved beautifully by associates.
I would also just, if I can, just add that there's been other instances where we've gone to Deutsch Williams about questions, whether we've been asked by the audit committee to consolidate our finance offices. I mean, because they specialize not only in school law but municipal law, they've been able to hand us off to someone who can read our charter and is fluent in the Mass General laws outside of just Chapter 70 and Chapter 71.
John? And then Michelle?
Yeah, I had just come on the committee when we got rid of the Springfield firm, and it was a man named Dambroff. Is that name, am I saying that properly?
Bob Dambroff.
And I'm just using him for reference that was the firm.
Yep.
And what I got out of the discussion was they weren't happy with the settlements that they were getting between us and the LEA. And they thought that a law firm from the Boston area would be better. And, well, I just note that I'm the only one left from that committee. And I wasn't one of the driving forces to go down to Boston to get counsel. And I'm just wondering, you talk about, put the word out that we're interested in some different people. What instrument would we have for evaluating them? I mean, to use that famous word of this year, the matrix. How would we go about evaluating a law firm? I don't know how to approach it. Maybe Russ could give us some advice, but, is it the fact you never have a case appealed, or you always win, or you drive home very tight collective bargaining contracts? Then, well, I just throw that out. I don't know the answer.
So
Go ahead, and then Michelle.
if normally what happens is that the location school committee would send out a bid to the firms, basically in the back of the school law book. There's a whole bunch of firms back there. So you send it out and you explain exactly what you want, so a request for proposals. And it's pretty detailed, and we can copy other people's if we do it. And then you get a packet back from each firm, hopefully tailored to your particular request for proposals. We'd all have a copy of that. And then you interview each firm that you decide meets the criteria that we've set. And then after that, you'd have to make a determination about whether you want to stay with the current firm or go with somebody else, and that's the part I wouldn't want to be involved in. But I think the first question is, if Deutsch Williams is doing an acceptable job, then maybe we don't do that. If the issues we've had this year are large enough where we think we should, then maybe we should. I mean, the 40,000, I was just trying to calculate that. The 40,000 roughly, at least 40,000 a year to 100, is, that's about 15 to 16 hours every month, including over the summer and everything else. If you just average it out, that's, if we actually have that much work, then that's what we're going to get charged. But some of that is, we have the case, we had the advice in those couple of cases, we went through those couple of cases. We had to have executive sessions and call them and talk to them about the cases. We got charged for all of those things, and we reversed course. So that costs more money, obviously. I just don't know if there was enough this year that's means we should go out to bid or not. I mean, I guess that's what the committee needs to figure out.
This was an excellent year.
Yeah.
Things were resolved with, I can't go into detail. Things went very well this year. The past associate had made recommendations a few years ago on past cases that we were not pleased with.
And those are the cases we settled this year,
No, one.
because those didn't go well this year.
I think we did one settlement on her recommendation, and then there was the one a couple years ago with,
Right.
yeah.
Michelle?
Yes,
That's right, Russell, one this year.
So I support going out to bid. I think it would be a good idea in this situation. I don't know if we need a motion for that, but I move that we bid out our legal services, not saying that we're not going to, in the end, choose Joyce Williams, but I think we should see what's out there and follow the procedure that you explained, RFP.
So is there a second?
I'll second that. I think it's appropriate. I mean, like John said, I mean, we've had them since 2009. It's almost been, it's been 8 or 9 years. It's, I think it's fine to see what's out there.
I'm not gonna be here after tomorrow, so I'm gonna just withhold my
Sure.
vote.
What if they don't put their name in the bids?
Well, if they don't bid, then they can't be evaluated, but we also don't have to choose anybody either.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, because
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think they've done a good job, except for that one lawyer that made 2 bad decisions for
I
me.
agree.
And I also think that, I know that we're the school committee, but I feel like the administration who actually works with these people should have a say in if they want to get rid of them or not.
Or if they want to go out to bid.
Or if they, yeah, I'm sorry, that's just, I mean, they're the ones working with them all the time, not us.
Ross?
Well, until we have to pay for it.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, but
I think that, from my point of view, I'm not looking at, I think we'd want to make it clear to them that this isn't, we want them to go. That's not what I would think anybody's saying, hopefully. I think it's more going out to bid to see if we can get the service for less money and ensure that we have partners working with us. I think that's really so maybe they bid and they insure those things and they're the ones we keep, or we go out to bid and we see we don't like anybody else any better, which is a very good possibility, actually.
I mean, there's something to be said for a firm that you've had for a number of years that knows you and your system.
Right.
Yeah.
And your community.
In your community.
So,
But-
point of information, when do we start bargaining again?
Next year.
2 years?
Next year is
Unit
year
A.
2 of the contract. So year 3 would be FY '18, which would be the year we would have to negotiate for a successor agreement.
Well, I understand their negotiation skills are quite good. It was this
She was very good.
evaluation process that could be a problem. And I'm not pushing to get rid of them. I'm just asking questions out loud that I remember we discussed at meetings. That's all.
I mean, I personally, I think they've done a great job, and I would like to continue to retain them. I don't have an issue with shopping it. I mean, if there's a firm that is also a good fit, and there's a firm that we, potentially could feel comfortable with, then, why not give them a look? I don't have an objection, let me put it that way.
All right, Michelle?
I just think it's a financially responsible decision to put it out there and look and see what else is happening.
Tom?
Before you call the question, could you just clarify that it's your regular ed legal services? Because the way it's currently phrased would be interpreted that it would be all legal services, I would say. So
Sue?
Yes.
So they do.
After you.
I just want you to clarify what your intent is, whatever it may be, just make sure it's clear in the
So they
motion.
do labor and general counsel.
They do labor and regular ed general counsel.
Sometimes.
They do.
Sometimes we turn it over to Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and the Hain, because actually they.
Yes.
I like how you got all 4 of those out because Tom couldn't.
What?
I got all 4 names out because Tom couldn't.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, we have to really be clear on what is this an attorney for labor negotiations, employee issues, and the student stuff goes to the other, or, because we have gotten kind of crisscrossed.
Well, special ed is normally just special ed. Everything, IEPs, 504.
Right, but there are
anything like
often
that.
student concerns that push kids down the special ed path because of something that happens, and, you know.
Usually, once it starts to intermingle, it goes right to special ed council. That's the way most places do it.
Okay.
Well, and
I
that
don't
would
know
be
how
my
we go here,
question
but-
is, you raise a good point, is if the committee is choosing to do this based on fiscal responsibility, then why wouldn't you look at reviewing special ed council as
Well,
well?
that wasn't my point.
Well, no, I'm saying, but the committee's point right now of what I'm hearing is it's the fiscally responsible thing to do, to go out to bid, to make sure that the committee is spending its money.
And how do you know then, Russ, like you said, if you're getting billed for every, email back and forth, for every 2-second phone call, for every, just quick question, blah, blah, blah? How do you account for that in the RFP?
I don't think you could, well, one, to clarify, my issue was we had to settle a bunch of cases, at least 2 or 3, that we shouldn't have had to. And I'm a little concerned that we're not actually getting the partner all the time, even for termination cases. So and it's also the financial too. So for me, it's kind of a 3-part issue. But I don't think you can. I think you have to figure out, you got to call the references and find out what their clients think of them and how they bill. That's usually a pretty good sign of, if you call the business manager, they're going to tell you, well, I think these are reasonable or not. If you're getting billed for, when they're billing you and they bill you to write up the bill, that's a bad sign. Sometimes that happens. So I think you just call references.
Okay.
Whoever's on the group that's actually going to do that,
Michelle?
I think, let's, bless you, rather than revamp everything or put too much on our plates at once, I think if we just look at the services that one firm has been providing for us and then get through that, then if we decide after that that we want to look at the other services, we could do that. But I think doing that all at the same time would be difficult. So I would like to amend the motion to specify that we just put out to bid the services that have been general counsel, general legal counsel, not including the special ed services.
Can I also?
Oh, wait, hold on, we have an amendment to the motion. Is there a second to
Second.
the amendment? Okay, I've got to keep track. Go on.
Does that clarify enough? Okay.
You also have a new superintendent coming on, and this historical knowledge here that the law firm has. I think they've done a great job. We've been extremely pleased with their associates this year. The principals continually comment on the quality of Nick Dominello and people who have handled some really tough cases this year exceptionally well. But with the new superintendent coming on, I would be cautious about a new firm because there's a lot of historical knowledge there of pending cases right now. So.
Would it be appropriate to then just delay going out? Maybe say we'll go out in like December, and that way, if we have anything in the meantime that pops up, they can talk to Marty, they can work with him, and then we can kind of go through that process
Then it would
for the
come-
FY18 budget.
Then it would coincide with your budget for
Yeah.
February. John?
Well, not to add to Tom's workload, but what if we asked Tom to make some calls around the area to find out
Oh, jeez.
which school systems are employing which law firms and what measure of satisfaction they have with them? That would be, as they say in poli-sci, a crude but useful tool, and you'd have some measuring device. And is there a rush on this, or do we really have do we have to sign a contract?
No, we have them on retainer, right?
We don't pay a
Well,
retainer,
well,
we
but
just
we have them.
pay as we use them.
Okay.
Well, is that a good idea? If people like that idea, have Tom do some more work.
I don't really like that.
Well, a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Sue
maybe
wants
an
to do it.
afternoon.
Can I do it?
Russ?
I think you would do that through the bid process probably. The bid process is going to take a while. Marty doesn't work with this firm right now anyway, so it's whoever he's coming in working with some new firm, presumably, no matter what. I don't know. I think what might happen is that you do a bid and you end up staying, or we end up staying with Deutsch Williams. And maybe we make it a little clearer that we really want to make sure we do have, the best people working for us. I think if we're still dealing with associates, I think that's still a question of, do we want that? Because if you're paying almost $4,000 a month, maybe we should have a partner for that cost. So I don't know. I just don't want to be in a situation, I would never want to see us settle another case where we relied on advice and we settle before we go to arbitration. That is not something I would want to see again. And I understand they took care of it, but they took care of it after we did it a couple times. So that's,
I agree. So is there a specific objection to just delaying when we do it, just so in case anything pops up? I mean, I guess we could probably just go ahead but maybe say that we would do it starting in December so that we could make a decision that coincides with the next fiscal year.
I think the only problem with that is just based on how much time the RFP took us for the how much efforts went into the superintendent search RFP. I think, while we have some downtime right now, it might be easier than December and January when it's budget season and we're in the thick of the school year.
That's a good point.
So,
Good point.
Tom?
Well, I think I want to echo kind of Marie's points that we have had good service for the most part. There most certainly have been issues, and I feel if that is the case, but there are concerns, why wouldn't we give them an opportunity to talk to them first, to bring up some of these concerns that the committee may have, to give them some feedback to you about whether things can be changed, give them whatever, maybe a year, maybe not a full year, to determine if we see an improvement or we still have concerns, to then make that decision that some action may need to be taken through some sort of review or bid process of changing the services.
Russ?
Yeah, that would also allow for Marty to have some time to figure out if he likes working with the firm. Because part of it is your personal relationship with the person.
Right.
So, you might have a good relationship with them, and maybe Marty will too, or maybe he won't really get along with the person. And some of it is that. It's just how well do you get along with your client. So delaying would allow that to happen too, to see, maybe he loves them and thinks they're doing a great job and we don't have any issues like this. And so there would be some benefit to that.
So would it be appropriate to amend the motion?
Amend the amended motion?
To amend the amended motion to say, pending a, thorough review of existing services and consultation with the incoming superintendent?
Or I could table the motion and we could
And just bring
talk
it
to them
back at a
about
future
that
meeting?
and bring it back.
Okay, whatever you want, Michelle. I'm good with whatever.
And maybe it is a full review of everything, just to see how much are we spending on the sped side too, whether that's
Yeah.
reasonable. Maybe we want one firm for everything, some places want that, I don't know. But
I would look at your special ed too, because your legal settlements they doubled from FY15 to FY16. And when I say they went from 103 to 206.
I think you can
have to be
attribute it
mindful that
to.
that's not always the attorney.
I think you can attribute
Yeah,
that to
you
some
can.
personnel-related issues.
And services. And placements.
the special ed side is often how aggressive is the attorney and the parents both, really, but some attorneys on the special ed side are real aggressive and they argue every case. That costs a lot of money. If you don't do that, it doesn't cost you as much, but you might pay more on the services side. But we probably should look at that too, I guess.
All right, so why don't we table the
I'll table
motion, and then we'll have this conversation with Marty starting July 1.
Yep, okay.
Makes sense.
We have to vote on tabling a motion.
Yeah, so motion to table.
She could just withdraw it.
Or you can withdraw, we bring it back. Doesn't matter.
Motion to table or?
Yeah, if we table it, it's still on our radar. We can bring it back.
Vote, I think, right? If you table it, you all have to vote?
Vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
The motion to table.
second.
There's motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, next item is the agenda, or on the agenda is the Director of Pupil which you have before you the finalized contract set forth for, Ms. Jean Fontaine as our new Director of Pupil Services.
I move that the school committee approve the employment contract for Miss Jean Fontaine as presented and authorize the school committee chair to sign the contract.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
That's
didn't
okay.
see you not raise. You're abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. All right, we have the warrants.
Okay, I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 2200 of the school lunch fund fiscal year 2016, dated 17 June 2016, in the amount of $150.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I move the school committee approve the warrant batch number 3197 of the general fund fiscal year 2016, dated 17 June 2016, in the amount of $299,589.38.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
That's it, just two of them.
We do have minutes this evening. Jen?
I move that the school committee approve the minutes to the May 23rd, 2016 school committee meeting as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That was our last school committee meeting? A long time ago.
Yeah. I move that the school committee adjourn into executive session to comply with or act under the authority of general or special law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22G, consideration of release of executive session minutes from previous meetings and strategy as it relates to contract negotiations with assistant superintendents, to reconvene into open session. This motion requires a roll call vote.
Aye.
Wait, do we have a second?
Second, and aye.
Okay.
John Fitzgerald, aye.
Michael Clark, aye.
Janet Robinson, aye.
Kim King, aye.
Michelle Grodzki, aye.
Russell Dupre, aye.
All right, thank you. We will be back in open session, and then there will be a meeting. Remember, tomorrow is Election Day, and school committee will be meeting.
Wednesday at 7 p.m. in this room in front of these cameras with a new board.
All right, thank you very much, and have a good evening.